What's going on? A little bit different video this week. Not too long ago, Adam Z Adventures had done a video called the Director's Commentary Challenge for his first backpacking trip ever. And he tagged a bunch of people in that challenge, and I was one of them. So here we go. I'm going to do my director's commentary for my first ever backpacking trip, which was also the first backpacking trip I ever recorded. So we've got that video. This was a trip that was planned to be the western loop of the Quehanna Trail. So from the trailhead, about 4.5-5 miles of the southern half of the Quehanna Trail. And then you get on the western cross connector, which brings you back up to the final 5 miles or so, or 10 miles or so of the Quehanna Trail. And it's about 23 miles total. So the plan was to get up at like 3 a.m. or leave at 3 a.m., get out to Benazet to see the elk, because there are, in Pennsylvania, if you're not aware, if you're from Pennsylvania, you don't know about the wild elk. They are out in the Benazet area. I had seen them before, and I knew that you had to be there like sunrise and an hour after, and an hour before sunset to sunset is the best time to see them. So I don't know why we thought we had to leave so early to do that. I set my alarm clock for PM instead of AM, so I missed that 3 a.m. time. We didn't leave until 4 a.m., and then we got out there. We should have already known at that point that we were going to run into problems on this trip, because I had already screwed up by setting my alarm clock the wrong way. So that's the lead up going into the trip. It was my first backpacking trip. It was Rocco's first backpacking trip. We had all new gear, new backpacks, everything. So you can see where this is going as far as the success rate for this trip. So this is we'll get started on the commentary for the video. This is a different style video, so it's going to be interesting. So we'll go ahead and get started. After hitting the road at 4 a.m., driving for 4.5 hours, hiking 8 miles in the forest with 35-pound packs, probably 50-pound packs, we still get noisy camp neighbors. And it winds up being coyotes. There were coyotes everywhere outside this camp. This was just one of the times that we heard them. The second time, they were way closer. And they didn't really bother me, but I think it may have been Rocco's first time being out in the wilderness with coyotes around camp. So this is the Benazet area. And the elk just show up in people's yards. It was the best place to see them out there. So we drove around, checked them out for a while. It's pretty cool. So the camera I'm using for this, I dug this thing out. This backpacking trip was shot with this little SJ Cam M10 Plus, and it's got zero stabilization. The microphone is horrible. I think because we weren't sure what the weather was going to be, I didn't have it in this like kind of frame case. It was in its plastic like diving shell, so the audio was even worse. It's got this really bad fisheye distortion to it that you can see in this video. That's why there's really no audio, not a lot of audio to it, because it was just bad. I think there's one clip where I used my phone to shoot the video because I talked to the camera. But the video, what a difference. I mean, yeah, just really bad. So the one thing that I didn't record as we were hiking in was, and this is like the second red flag that we knew we should have known this was going to be a harder trip than we thought. We got about a half mile from the car down the trail, and Rocco realized he left his camera on his car. He drove, so drop packs, and I stayed with the packs while he walked back to the car to get his camera, and that's where I got the thumbnail picture from. Was while I was waiting for him to come back. But yeah, so I missed the alarm. He forgot his camera. By the point this is at right now, my shoulders are already starting to hurt because my pack wasn't set up right. It was way too heavy. I never really tested it. Yeah, it was getting brutal. Beautiful forest. This is an interesting spot because I went back last September in 2022 and I did the entire Quehanna Trail. I did the entire 75 miles. I think it was like 74 and a half miles. But when I got back to this point, it's only about 4.5 miles in, maybe. And I'll see if I can find the photo and I'll put it in here. I took a picture of my watch, which I was doing all my tracking on, and it felt like it took all day to get here when we first did this trip. We were exhausted already. The trail veers off to the left, and it goes into those woods and follows along that. You can kind of see there's a road right in front of us. We're at like a T intersection. And then it goes down about, I don't know, maybe a third of a mile, and then it comes back across that road and heads off the other way. So we decided we're not even going to, we're so tired right now. We're so beat up 4 miles in that we don't even want to take that little spur of the trail. So we just followed the road. But so I took a picture of my watch and showed Rocco. It took me like maybe an hour and a half to get to that point when I went back out in 2022, and it felt like it took all day there. We had drank most of our water. We were looking for a water source on the first trip, and last year when I went, I hadn't even opened my water bottle up yet. What a difference a few years makes. It's a backpacking experience. That pack is absolutely as big as it looks in that video. It's an 80-liter pack. It's massive. So we had stopped here for lunch. This is right after, I don't know, this is maybe a half hour to 40 minutes after that last shot. And we had gotten water. We were using hydro packs, which is probably the last time I did that, because I had to take some stuff out of my backpack, pull the bladder out, use my Sawyer squeeze to fill it up. And I think I had like a half-liter Sawyer bag. So it wasn't even a full liter bag. So it took forever to refill the hydro bladder. I think we took some extra water with us, and so our packs were just super heavy at this point. And then we realized we left at 4. We'd stopped at like a Sheetz or something on the way in, grabbed like some breakfast sandwiches. But then we drove all the way out there. We went and saw the elk. We went and went to the Elk Country Visitor Center, checked that out. Then we drove down to the trailhead. We had to register with the state park, just let them know that we were there. Got on the trail, started hiking. We hadn't eaten since we had left. We were now hours into a trip. We were already beat up. It's like 2 o'clock or something at this point. And we're just stopping for lunch. I think we'd stopped one time for a snack. But yeah, we're only like 6 miles in right here. And we were just stopping for lunch, and we were just, it was the worst planning ever of a trip. Yeah, we didn't make it much further past this really fun camp. All right, so we've got a campsite right in around here somewhere. And I just walked up here to see if I could find the overlook and see if there's a campsite up here, but there's nothing. I can't find the overlook. So I'm going to head back down to the campsite we got down here. Then we'll set up there for the night. So we had gone past the campsite. It looked like a decent campsite. There was water right by it. It wasn't great, but there was water. So we stopped there, and I told Rocco, so just hang out here. I'll drop my pack. I'll go ahead and I'll see what that vista and campsite looked like. We didn't know there was a campsite there. We just knew there was supposed to be a vista, and we were hoping that there was going to be a campsite. We are still way short of the halfway point of doing that loop, but we didn't care. So I hiked ahead, went out to this point. There was no vista there anymore. There was no campsite. And I went way past that vista and wound up starting to head back down off the top of the plateau. And when I recorded that's where I decided I'm going to turn around and head back. On my way back, I did find a better water source, but there was trees down across the trail in a couple spots, so it took me longer to get out there than I thought. And as I'm walking back, I realize this may be the first time Rocco's been this far out into a forest, and I left him in a campsite by himself. So I took like a blade of grass. If you've ever done this before, you take a blade of grass, you put it between your thumbs, and you make like a reed, and you blow into it. It makes it's almost like a duck call. So I started doing that on my way back, so he knew I was coming back. And when I got back to camp, he was like, "I'm glad you did that, because I was starting to get some like the first aid kit and some water and some snacks and throw them into a pack, and I was going to come out and see if I could find you. I didn't know what happened to you." And I had to explain to him that it took longer to get out there than I expected. But yeah, so we just stayed in the campsite we initially found, which was here. Really nice campsite. And then of course the coyotes. This is the one section with coyotes. And again, different way of recording, and I didn't touch on this at all in the video, but when we got set up and we went to make our food, we went to this next water source. I found it was better than the one that was by camp, because the one by camp was kind of stagnant. It was moving a little bit, but it wasn't great. It was really shallow. So I found a little bit deeper water source, like a little trough that went across the trail, and it was a natural, it wasn't like somebody man-made it, but it's like a little natural trough in the side of the hill. And we get back to camp, make our food, and we're about halfway through eating, and all of a sudden Rocco realizes that he was so focused on eating and was so worn out, like we both were, that he didn't remember if he had filtered his water to make his dinner. So I'm like, well, I mean, you boiled your water, right? If you didn't filter, at least you boiled it. And he's like, well, he was using these little solid fuel cubes, and it wasn't like a little Esbit stove. It was by a company called Blewett. So it was like a cylinder, and you open up, you put the fuel cube inside, and then you put your pot on top of it, and you can control how much oxygen gets in there. It's a really cool solid fuel stove. But the pot he was using was his like a Stanley pot, and they're really like heavy duty pots. It's not like a titanium pot where you get really good, like almost instant heat transfer. This takes a minute to warm up. So it got warm, and it started to get bubbles in it, but never got to a rolling boil. So he's eating his food with water that he didn't really boil and might not have filtered. So I just filtered up a bunch of water, boiled it, filtered it, just to be safe, and left it sitting in camp next to the tree that was by us. And I was like, if you get up and you get sick, drink the water, wake me up, I'll go get more water, and then we'll figure out a plan from there. But everything wound up being okay. Again, different style of video shooting. I couldn't really see what the camera was capturing. I was trying to get that bird, and we are moving around in camp. You can't really see it, but I'm not sure why I left this in the video, because it's awkwardly long for something that you can only see the top there, like the light coming through the top of the trees. Really kind of bizarre choice on my behalf. Don't know. But it was a really cool campsite. It was early in the morning. I think we weren't making our food yet because the next scene is me getting the food bag. We may have just been like packing things down. Whatever we were doing, I thought it was interesting enough to record, but you couldn't see it. And then, yeah, so first backpacking trip, not a bad spot for a food bag, but I do edit this down a little bit because the bag did get stuck in a tree. The rope was like caught under a piece of, you can see the cut right there. It was under a piece of bark and I couldn't get the food bag down, which you kind of see behind me here, my bear canister. I don't hang food bags anymore. So we get up, we're both feeling pretty beat up, and we realize even though we're on trail, we're there earlier than we were the day before, we're not going to continue around the loop. We're just going to go back the way we came because we know that terrain. So we turn around. There's that water source right next to us. It was not good. We turn around, head back the way we came, and yeah. So we really only made it about 8 miles down the trail. But that's okay. First backpacking trip, you learn things. And at the very end here, as we get to the parking lot, the motion I make to the camera real quick isn't we're done with the trip. It's I'm done. I'm cooked. That's it. Got nothing left. Glad this is, my feet were killing me. Right here, I spin the camera towards me. I was done. That was it. I had nothing left. The good thing about that is that trailhead is in a state park, and we got back early enough that the concession stand down by the beach was open. So we went down there and we got a couple cheeseburgers, and they were the best burgers we'd ever eaten, which usually when you're backpacking, the food you eat is the best food you've ever eaten. But yeah, it was really, we learned a lot. I learned a lot. And like I said, when I went back and redid that, I did the full loop, and I was fine. After so many trips, you start to dial in what you need. I took so much stuff I didn't need on a trip. I think I took my axe, I took my saw, I took my knife. We never had a fire. I had, did I take do you even have a camp chair? I might not have had a camp chair at that time. All my hammock gear, my hammock was an Eno, my quilts were Eno, my tarp, I think that was my X-Ped tarp, which was a little bit lighter, but a little bit smaller. I took lights with me. I had way more extra clothes than I needed. I had like 2 battery banks. I had the hydro bladder plus an Nalgene. And at certain points I was carrying my full hydro bladder, a full Nalgene, and a full Sawyer bag with me. Probably took extra food, which is usually a good thing. Just so much stuff. So much stuff. So much stuff. Didn't need it. I got home, opened my bag, and I just was like, well, I didn't need that. 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 Now it's funny when I pack for a trip, even, my bag I usually use is in the summer, my, was a 38 liter, my Exos, and I'm trying to find stuff to put in there because I just take the bare essentials. I take my hammock, my tarp, my quilts, a pillow, food, water, a knife, and maybe if I'm going to be out for more than 2 days, extra clothes. Or if I think it's going to rain, I'll take some light extra clothes or some dry stuff. But I don't carry much of anything at all anymore. It's amazing how much that's changed over the years. So that was my director's commentary on my first backpacking trip ever. Let me know what you guys think. I think it was kind of cool. I like going back and watching old videos because I see the way I used to record things, the way I used to edit them, what I was looking at while I was recording. And then some of that stuff I liked. Some of it I don't like. And I try to insert that back. The stuff I do like, I try to insert back into the way I do things now. So it's always an evolution, a different process. If you are a backpacker and you have a YouTube channel and you do videos, I invite you to do this challenge. Just an open invitation. Go back and look at your first backpacking trip, and then do a commentary on it. Do a reaction to your own video, and see how you've changed. See what you think about how your videos have changed and how your style of backpacking or camping, whatever it is that you do, has changed. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it doesn't rain all weekend, and I'll have an actual outdoors video for you next week. See you next. So after a little bit of a late start, made it out to the Quehanna Trail. Stopped in Benazet, saw some elk, and now starting the 20-mile hike around the Quehanna Connector Trail loop. Just about to head out of Parker Dam State Park.